Winton, you ready to kick things off?
Yes, indeed.
All right.
Ready? Welcome, everybody. We're glad to see y'all coming back. You know, we do Exchange Domain. We talk about trivial and significant things with the same type of passion and feeling. And we're lucky tonight. We have two fantastic guests. Dee Dee Bridgewater is full of great stories. Great Chick Corea is full of great stories. And I'm just going to kick it off by saying a few things, and then I'm going to just let them have it. And you're going to get a chance to see how we just talk when we're sitting around backstage, or the type of conversation that normally goes on. So the first, I'm going to talk about something called the coldest, truest thing you ever heard, that you ever told. So when I was growing up, I'm going to start with my father. And he was always trying to get us to learn traditional New Orleans music. And of course, we're playing in funk bands, and we're playing like the music we played in the 1970s. The last thing in the world we wanted to do was play some Handkerchief Head New Orleans style music. So there was a great trumpet player named Teddy Riley who played the cornet at Louis Armstrong's funeral in 1971. And my father would always say, man, call Buck. His nickname was Buck. Call Buck, man, call Buck. And I wouldn't call Buck. Finally, after like a year and a half or something, he said, man, did you ever call Buck? I said, man, I'm not going to call Buck. Buck can't even read. He said, son, people can either play or they can't play. Look at you. You can read. So that kind of stuff is a cold, true statement that he would just tell you. So I'm going to tell y'all another one before I know Dee Dee had some good ones. I used to go to John Lewis as the great music director of the Modern Jazz Quartet. I used to go to his home on West End Avenue maybe once or twice a week. I always made a point to go up and play with he and his wife, Mariana. She was a fantastic keyboardist, played harpsichord and Baroque music. And one day I was up there just complaining about some bad reviews I got. And Mr. Lewis was very quiet and considered dignified man. He listened to it for a while, and I kept going maybe a little longer than he wanted to hear it. So then when I would do that, he would start tinkling on the piano as if to say, hey, man, we heard enough of this. But I was so caught up in my narrative about how wrong I was being done. Then he stopped and he put the piano, the covering of the keys over the piano. He said, listen, man, when one goes on and on about themselves, even if it's negative reviews, that is a form of extreme egotism. Could we please get to this music and stop hearing about you and how you feel about people's opinion about you? So that's two of my cold ones. Dee Dee, what you think about that?
I think, okay. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that happens when we are young and we don't know. And you were getting the words of someone with wisdom and experience. So, but I can't really pull anything up of my own stuff. Wait a minute. I just got a girlfriend that called in. I'm sorry. I can't pull anything up right now because that's kind of cold. What did it make you feel like?
Did you know Betty Carter? Did you know Betty Carter?
I knew Betty Carter. I was Betty Carter's puppy dog. I used to follow Betty Carter everywhere. So I didn't experience Betty like a lot of other people did. Betty kind of let me into her inner circles, but she would never allow me to come to any of her rehearsals. So she would always let me know where she was playing in New York when I first moved to New York, and I would always reserve a seat at a table by myself, and I would just sit and I would just drink her in. I do remember one time we were performing in Brussels, and it was a concert where she was doing a duet with Abby Lincoln. So it was she and Abby for one half of the show, and then me for the other half. And we were on an intermission break between the two shows, and we were standing backstage, and I said, Betty, I said, you know, you did this duet album with Carmen, and I said, now you're doing these shows with Abby. And she said, in true Betty fashion, with verbiage that we cannot use, she said, don't ask me, and I won't have to hurt your feelings.
Ouch.
And I said, okay, Betty, I won't ask you. She said, thank you. Let's talk about something else. And that was it.
I got an opposite story. I got an opposite kind of story, but it's a very cool story. So when talking about our heroes, I remember after I played with Mongo Santa Maria's band in 1960, I think, 1960.
Wow.
Was my first gig with a name band in New York, and it was thrilling, you know. And then after I worked, the timbali player on Mongo's band at that time was Willie Bobo. You remember Willie Bobo?
Yes, yes, I remember Willie. He
Yeah.
could
Bogus,
dance.
His,
Willie Bobo could dance.
Yeah.
his real last name is Correa, same as mine,
No.
except with 2 R's. He's from Puerto Rico. So anyway, Willie formed a band after Mongo's band, and because he wanted to play jazz drums. He wanted to be a jazz drummer. So he took me out of the band. Larry, who played with Monk,
Gales.
I don't know.
Larry Gales.
Gales.
Larry Gales was
Right.
the bass player. Joe Farrell was the tenor player. I think Marty Scheller was the trumpet player. And we had this quintet. So we played at Birdland. We got a Birdland gig. And so after one of the nights at Birdland, you know, I'm so new in New York, and I'm trying to find my footing. I don't know, am I doing good or not doing good? I'm enjoying the excitement of it, and it's after the night, after the 2 sets or 3 sets, however long we played, and I'm at the bar nursing a drink. I think I was the last guy there, and I see down at the other end of the bar, some guy starts walking toward me, and I recognized him when he came halfway. It was Tommy Flanagan, who was one of my heroes, my Hawaiian piano hero. So Tommy comes up to me, and all he did was he kind of pointed at me, and he said, "Man, you got some fresh ideas." And he turned around and he walked away. And
That was it?
Mhm.
I was on a cloud for 2 weeks. That's the kind of thing that kept me going in New York.
That's beautiful.
What about you, DD? What have you?
That's an opposite story.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good
Sometimes the
story. That's a
opposite thing can have
beautiful
the same
story.
effect. You know, sometimes somebody tell you something cold, it makes you practice. Sometimes they're real friendly, it makes you. That's like the African chief. They gave him some ice. He said, "Bits of fire."
Right.
So what-
right.
I got a good one.
What
I have
you
a
got?
really
You got?
good one, guys.
Uh-huh.
Okay. When Cecil Bridgewater and I first married, Cecil had also been hired into Horace Silver's quintet. So instead of us doing a honeymoon, we did this tour. And I was quite enamored with Horace Silver. I just love Horace's work. I love his compositions. So we're doing this tour, and Andy Bay, of course, is the singer. And we get to Detroit. I'm from Flint, Michigan. So we get to Detroit, and of course, all my family is coming up from Flint because they want to, number one, meet my new husband, and then number two, hear him play in Horace Silver's band. And then some of my cousins had said, and maybe you'll sing. And so Andy and I decided before we got to Detroit that I was going to sit in. And this was when he had the United States of Mind albums going. And so this was the first album of that. I think it was a trilogy, wasn't it? But at any rate, it doesn't matter. The song we had selected was Love Vibrations. And so Horace had a tendency when he played to play with his head down, and his hair would just be in his face, and so he wouldn't see.
Right.
So I don't know why Andy and I thought if he can't see, he can't hear.
Uh-huh.
So I had asked Horace if I could sit in, and he had told me no, absolutely not.
Mhm.
And so Andy and I had decided he's not going to stop us if I'm singing. So he starts the intro to Love Vibrations, and we're in a club in Detroit. I don't know what club, I can't remember the club, but at any rate, and so when it starts, emptiness surrounds my lonely heart, I start singing. I got to surrounds my lonely heart, and to sing Life Has Lost Its Rhythm, I go, and he looks up, and he turns, and he looks at me, and he says, what are you doing on my stage? Get off. Get
Ooh.
off now.
Ouch.
Get off in front of all my family and my
Oh,
friends
oh,
and my new husband
oh,
and the band.
oh,
And Andy is standing on the side. So I just
oh,
kind of slithered off stage.
yeah.
But from that moment, I said, I'm going to prove to Horace Silver that I can sing his music. He's got such a close idea about who can interpret his music. And so instead of it making me feel bad, because I knew I was wrong, because he'd already told me no, I just decided I'm gonna prove to him. So then when I decided, when we fast forward, that was 1971. Fast forward to 1995, and I called him, you know, and told him, I said, I'm gonna do a whole album of your music. And he says, Didi, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. A woman wants to do,
Yeah.
I can't believe a woman wants to honor me. How come it's
Yeah.
none of my musicians? And I said, Horace, I am a musician.
That's beautiful.
But that was a bad story that had a great ending.
What a sweetheart. Hey, Didi, 1971, check it out. You
mean when?
You and Andy.
Go ahead.
You and Andy, 1971. What else happened in 1971 with you and Andy and me and Stanley?
And Stanley.
Right.
Unexpected Days and Sea
That's
Journey.
Right. That's right. That was when we first met.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember coming up to your apartment. Stanley and I would meet you, and Ayrton and Flora would come. You remember?
Yeah. That's right.
Were you a baby, Winton? Were you a baby? What were you? Were you born?
1971, Winton.
No, I was 10.
Yeah,
you were 10?
He was old enough.
I was 10, but I like hearing about it.
You were probably playing like
that was still a long time ago.
You were probably playing like a demon at 10. Were you playing the
No, man, I was terrible. I love hearing about it though.
Oh yeah, well, I
love hearing it. But go ahead, don't stop.
Well, I mean, that was a memorable session. That was Stanley's first
That was his first solo album.
Yeah, I produced that. You know, I have this producing technique that I did with Stanley, and I've done it with some others. It's a really cool technique. I recommend it. What I did with Stanley is I sat down with Stanley, and I said, Stanley, you got to make a record, man. You're amazing. All right. He said, yeah, I want to make a record. So I said, okay, what do you want to do? Like, what would you like to do? And all I recommended was that he write music. And that's all I did to produce. And he just came up with that record. I didn't do anything. I played on it, and I was in the studio. That's how you produce a guy like Stanley Clarke.
So what do y'all?
He brought you in, Didi, and he brought Andy Bay in, and I got to meet you guys, and that was a great experience. You know, that's where I met Bernie Kirsch on that.
On that album.
Yeah, he was an engineer at the Electric Lady Studios. Did we do that at Electric Lady?
Do not ask me that kind of a detail. Okay. I don't remember where we did that. I don't have a clue. Where did we do that? Was it Electric Lady?
Yeah, I think it was. But I got a Horace Silver story. You want to hear? You want to hear?
Yeah.
I have a couple of Horace Silver stories. I'll tell you the earliest one.
Okay.
Earliest one was when I was in high school in 50, 58, 57, 58, 59 in Boston. There was a jazz club there called Storyville. And you remember Storyville?
I mean, I remember hearing about it. I never went. I think it was gone by the time I was old enough.
Wein, that's right. George Wein. That was George Wein's first venue. And he brought all of this great music in to Storyville. So you know, Horace Silver Quintet came in one week, and I, at that point, I had devoured every Horace record that came out, and I was already transcribing Horace tunes and learning his solos and learning Blue Mitchell solos, and that was a real training ground for me. So me and my buddy, we went early in the afternoon. We went like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we went to the, I think it was the Bradford Hotel, to see if there was anything going on. You know, we peeked in the window. It was dark inside, but the door was open. So we opened the front door and we see a dark club, and there's this one light at the piano with Horace sitting at the piano composing. He had a pencil and he was working something out, right? So me and my buddy, we snuck in the front door, and I'm getting emotional about this. And we sat in the back. We just tucked ourselves in the back. And man, for the next hour, we sat quietly and observed Horace write a tune. Check that out.
Wow.
That's right. Him working it out on the piano, and then him writing some stuff down, and then him working it out some more, and then him write. And that tune came out on Further Explorations, his next record. But
What was the tune? Which one was it?
it was one of the tunes on Further Explorations. But that was an incredible, like, that's the university that I loved going to. That
Right.
kind of thing.
Well, you know what was
saw Horace a
wonderful
lot.
about? Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No,
Wyndham.
go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to make this little statement. What was wonderful about the music is when I came along on the tail end of this whole real true sense of community and family, where as soon as a young musician would come on the scene, they were just taken in by the older musicians and were protected. And the older musicians would share all kinds of information with the young musicians that could be useful. And it was also the period I came in on the end of people sitting in at concerts. You know, you would go to a concert, and one of the beauties of going to a concert in the early 70s is you never knew who was going to come out on the stage of the artist's concert that you went to.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
That's
and
right.
that was beautiful.
Right. Well, I came along after y'all, but I have to say that the musicians always treated me like that. Like if I talk about John Lewis or Art Blakey or any of the musicians, even recently, I started to really know Chick later, but it still was automatically a familial type of feeling and a kind of love did exist because of the music. With Horace Silver, I used to see him. One year I called him and asked him if he would judge a high school jazz band festival and competition we have every year. It's called Essentially Ellington. So it's rooted in Duke's music, but we play a lot of other music as we go along. So Horace came and he was one of our judges. And the judging scale is from like 1 to 10. So most of the time you give kids, a good bands get 8s, 9s, almost never 10s, but 7, 8s to 9s. Kind of medium bands will get 7, 6. Really, really bad bands will get 5s or 4s. You almost never give anything lower than a 5. You don't want to give a 5. Then we came from the first rung of judges. And it's like 5 of us judges. We sitting in the room and we putting the scores up. We got like 8s and 9s, and Horace got like 2s and 3s and 1s. Yep. So they said, so everybody started looking around. They said, man, you got to talk to Horace. I said, man, I don't want to talk to him. You talk to him. He said, no, talk to Horace. I said, okay. So I talked to Horace. I said, Mr. Silva, we don't normally give kids 2s and 3s and 1s and stuff like that. We try to come from more encouraging them. We don't try. And he listened to me very patiently. He said, And when I got finished talking to him, we came back the next round, and man, he was hitting people with 2s and 4s and 3s. His highest score was like a 4.
Yeah.
I said, man, we got to the end of the judge, and he looked at me and he said, look, man, when I was coming up, people could play when they were 18 and 17. He said, people like Lee Morgan. So he started naming all the people who could play. He said, you got to hold these kids to a standard.
Yeah.
This is my score. I'm giving them 2s and 3s. So to this day, that might have been 15 years ago, 17 years ago. Whoever gives the lowest score as a judge, we say that they have won the Horace Silver Award. But Horace was a beautiful cat too. He would come to gigs all the time. He came to, last time I saw him was a gig we played in Los Angeles at Royce Hall. He came and had a lot of really intelligent, insightful comments about the music. Like, what about just one thing, subject I want to get on, the thing I noticed when I was growing up, because I grew up more in the funk era, but I always noticed how intelligent the jazz musicians were. Like I could stand around, because my father's a musician, I would hear Dizzy talk or Art Blakey talk or Sweet Edison or Woody Herman or, all the musicians he would play with. And it was always kind of shocking to me, the intelligence of the musicians. So what you got for me in terms of just when you were talking to somebody and you realize just the depth of their intelligence, DD?
Yeah. Hey, check this out. Hey, Winton, while you were talking, I came across a little thing on my wall. I don't know if you can see it. See that?
I can see it if you come a little closer. Bring the phone closer.
Well,
I've got whatever it is.
I've got a laptop. Anyway, I'm going to tell you what that is, because it's about competitions, and it's a photograph of Bela Bartok. Right? And the quote that Bartok says on it is, "Competitions are for horses, not artists."
Ooh.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like it. I like it on a certain level, but on another level, I think it's long as you don't think that it means the end all or be all of stuff. And that, to me, that means that he probably lost a couple of them and made him mad. And I think it's.
I don't know. I beg to differ a little bit. I beg to differ. You have to have thick skin in order to be easy with they like you, they don't like you, they're up and down. Right. You got to be easy. But I do agree with your philosophy of being encouraging. I don't think criticism of other musicians or young artists gets them very much. Personally,
I think criticism.
Well, I agree with that.
If it's constructive, I think that criticism can be helpful. I mean, what I try to do is if I want to say something about, of course, I do a lot of vocal workshops. So if I want to say something to a young singer who I feel is lacking in some areas, what I try to do is to try to find some kind of positive way to get the area where I think that this particular person needs to improve. I try to find something that is positive that can open them up so that they can be receptive to a positive criticism.
What's a positive?
So I try and do it so that
devil's advocate.
The takeaway is going to be positive, no matter what you say.
Give me an example of a positive criticism.
Don't come in here playing like that again. I would just.
I'll tell you a story. I got a great story. Freddie Hubbard. You ready? Freddie Hubbard at the both ends in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Freddie Hubbard. He's up on stage playing with I don't know, it was a jam, I guess. Freddie's playing, and there was a jam session, and a line of horn players were coming up playing, right?
Right.
So I guess he was getting a little bit tired of it, and this one guy came up with his trumpet, getting ready to play. And Freddie did. I still love the way Freddie look at these guys. He go,
right.
And
yes.
Then, so he goes, ding 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 da da do dee da da ding ding da, and then rips off two of the most unbelievable trumpet choruses you ever heard in your life.
Right.
And then turns to the guy.
Yeah,
and smile. It was
I love Freddie.
It was a withering experience.
That could have worked back then. Now that kind of stuff doesn't work. If somebody come up and can't play their horn at all and they'll play 50 choruses. But I think in terms of the positive criticism, a long time ago when I was in my I was like 24 or something, but I was teaching a master class of classical music to a kid who was in high school. So I was kind of close to him in age, but I'd already had a record out. And he was the best trumpet player there. And every time he would play something, I would stop him and tell him something negative. And it was kind of the method, more or less, that I had learned. Just so he played, I tell him negative. Played, I tell him negative. Played, I tell him negative. And I could tell it was kind of getting to him because he was really respected in his school. And he was very respectful and nice. So he wasn't the type of person that you wanted to mess with. And I really wasn't trying to mess with him. I was just trying to say, you didn't do this right. You didn't breathe right. You didn't this. So after a while, it just got to be too much for him. And he looked at me and he said, Mr. Marcellus, may I respectfully ask that you teach me from the positive frame of reference. And I never forget that, because when he told me that, it was a lesson for me.
Wow.
So I told him, I said, man, you know, I don't really know how to teach you from the positive frame of reference. But from this time, I start to try to always, when I teach a lesson, I talk to somebody, I try to always acknowledge what they can do and what it is that they are able to do, and say, use what you're able to do to educate what you cannot do. Because if I don't tell you what you can do, I can't teach you a lesson. It can't all be positive reinforcement. But I always like to start in the positive, from what he said, the positive frame of reference.
That's a really good philosophy, man.
That's
a very good.
And I think
I agree with that.
Another thing is good also, Chick, it's good for people to see we could have a conversation and we don't have to agree on everything, and we don't have to demonize each other.
Yeah.
Like I think in our public life, it's so little a disagreement as to always be. It's always like if you don't agree with everything somebody says, you're their enemy or you hate them.
Yeah.
We talk about plenty of things we don't agree on. It doesn't mean your opinion or your thoughts or anything or any less important or valuable than anybody else.
Look at how different. You look at how different in the music world each one of us creates our music, just like really completely differently. We have different approaches. This electric, acoustic, fast, slow, pop, not pop, far out, far in.
Right.
I don't know. You can't put words to it, but it's the creative thing that you want to get out of everybody. Everybody's got a different talent and a different dream.
I agree. Oh, I just thought of something.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
I
right.
just thought of something.
Right.
It was like 1996. Chick, I think we were in Oregon. That particular year, we did several festivals where we were on the same bill on the same day.
That's right. That's right. I remember.
And we were riding to the festival together. And you said to me, I don't know how we got into this conversation, but we were talking about jazz clubs. I was living in France. And you said, Dee Dee, you need to start doing the jazz clubs. And I said, Chick, but I don't do clubs. I only do concert work. I don't want to do clubs. And you said to me something that forever changed the way I thought and think about doing club work. You said, Dee Dee, if we don't go into those jazz clubs and we don't play in those jazz clubs, those club owners are not going to be able to make the money that they need for the lesser known artists to come in and to get their start. I'm kind of paraphrasing. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah. Yeah, I do remember that. But you know what
Huh?
I'm sorry. You were saying? Well, I remember that, Dee Dee, but I remember the one festival we played, and this kind of ties into Winton in a sense, because do you remember the drummer that you had during that time? That's when I met Ali.
Ali Jackson.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
That's right. Ali was with me.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I first hooked up with Ali, and that was Winton's drummer for many years.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
I got another horror story. Can we do another horror story?
Is it going to be the horror show? Maybe this is the horror silver show.
Sometimes those are
Horace was
sometimes those are the best ones.
He was such a big inspiration and influence. Fortunately, I got to meet him later on. I got two stories. I mean, later on, what happened? You remember the old Catalinas in LA?
Cool.
On Cahuenga?
Yeah, I had a gig there one time with my trio with Avishai Cohen and Jeff Ballard, and the trio at that point was like a really tight group, and I had written a lot of stuff for that trio, and I swear, man, it was one of the memorable sets of my life, because when you got a group, and after you play a lot of gigs in a row, the group gets greased up.
Yes.
And before you're going to walk out on stage what's going to be delivered. You know that it's going to, I mean, you have no question that that stuff is going to smoke. It's just going to,
Right.
you know, it's there now. So we were at that point at Catalina's, and who appears in the audience at one table, but
Just one table.
Herbie Hancock, Greg Fillinganes, Billy Childs, and Horace Silver.
What?
Yeah, and they all came down to check me out and check my trio out. And you know, the trio smoked.
I know you all did. I know you
And-
turned up the heat.
And we blew everybody away, and it was, and Horace was so encouraging and so validating. But here's my story with Horace. With Horace, what happened is since he first started playing with Miles Davis, and then right, I mean, it was right around that time that he and Art Blakey got together, and they were really the first jazz messengers.
Right.
Horace Silver wrote the music to those recordings, right? So anyway, I followed Horace's music and his albums all the way through. Every album I got, I learned all of the songs on his albums. I was just totally into Horace. So by the time I moved to New York in '59, by 1964, Horace's band was at the top of his game around 64. And he had Blue Mitchell, Junior Cook, Roy Brooks, and Gene Taylor. But what happened is that Horace would take some time off, and the group, you know, Blue Mitchell and Junior, they wanted to keep working. So they put a group together with the four of them, Gene Taylor, Roy Brooks, Blue Mitchell, and Junior Cook, and they needed a piano player. I don't know how. I still to this day don't know how I got that gig. I don't know who recommended me, but I ended up in that piano chair, and I worked with Blue Mitchell's group. I mean, with Horace Silver's group, minus Horace Silver, for a couple of years. And can you imagine the amazing experience that was for me?
Right.
To follow in my total hero's footsteps into a band of his musicians. That was like, you know, university. Wow. We played Minton's. We used to do these 6 week stints at Minton's. We do we do 3-4 sets a night, starting at 10 o'clock at night, going to 4 and 5 in the morning.
Yes.
Oh man, that was a great period. That was a great period.
You know, it's something about sometimes you have a band or people hook up and they get together, an impact that it can have on audiences. You know, I remember I played with a septet, and we reached a certain point where we would be playing. Man, it would be like we played on the airplane. The airplane had to stop. We were going to Buenos Aires, and something happened, and the plane stopped in Europe, where we were just stuck on the plane. Everybody pulled their horns out and started playing.
Yeah.
People on the plane just went crazy. We played outside in Ukraine or somewhere in Eastern Europe. It was late at night. The restaurant was closed. And we said, man, maybe if we pull our horns out, we'll get the guy to open the restaurant up. We started playing. He opened the restaurant up and cooked food for us. And it just, like you were saying, sometimes when you get a group, you get a certain kind of just a relationship, a thing that happens. And it's just like that band had Reginald Veal and Herlin Riley and Wes Anderson, you know, just the vibe of people playing. And cats will come check it out. I remember Milt Jackson came down to check us out one night.
Milt!
And you know, we'd always be excited whenever people come. Dizzy would come to a gig. I can just remember gigs that great musicians showed up to your gig, Sweet Edison or anybody that you respected when they showed up to a gig.
Yeah.
And,
Man, didn't that make you feel proud?
To what Dee Dee was saying, yeah, you know, all the musicians. I had a chick. It's one thing. I'm gonna just tell this story about when the musicians older than you give you that kind of love. When I was 18, George Wein booked me on a gig to play with Mel Torme. And, you know, I just come to New York. I was just turned 18, and I couldn't really play on chord changes. You know, I was kind of pentatonic. And the contractor had told Mel Torme, man, I don't know how this kid got on the gig because he can't play. Because the contractor knew me from playing some classical music. And Mel, the first song we played was called One Morning in May. And it was in the key of D, trumpet E. Of course, I didn't know how to play an E at all, but I just played something chromatic or something. Mel stopped the whole orchestra and everybody and said, man, this kid can play. So, you know, for all those years after that, when I saw Mel Torme, he would always look at me and say, one morning in May. And
yeah, nice.
Jerry Mulligan, around that same time, I met him in Seattle. And he and I, when he met me, he said, man, you the kid from New Orleans. I said, Jay, and he said, man, you know how to play that counterpoint? And I was thinking, wow, it was like a kid. I said, yeah, let's see. You know, we played contrapuntal pieces, and I think of all the years that passed. I would see Jerry all the time, all of the different conversations we had, how serious they would be. And they all go back to those early years. So I think when I see DDU and Chick talk, and y'all go back to, you know, 1971, this time that I met you, it's hard kind of for people, if you don't have all those years under your belt, you don't realize the type of impact that these long-term relationships have as they play out across time.
That's
So
right.
This is true.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
That's a good
thing.
point. That's a good point, Wynton. It's true.
Beautiful thing. We have the musicians I find, I've got this pride of being a musician, and because musicians like and artists that spend their lives at it, like Dee and Wynton, like you guys, and like our friends who we know that spend their life at it. I think we all have an unspoken, tacit agreement about what we're doing. We don't put it in words. We all agree
Right.
on that. And I see it as a kind of mission. And I talk to the young people like that, young musicians who are really interested to do something, but they're scared to commit themselves to a lifetime or really get deep about it. And I try to explain to them the fulfillment of being a part of this tacit agreement of making people feel good and inspiring them like that and inspiring each other. It's really a great gig we've got. It's
Right.
a great
Well,
gig.
I wanna pick up on what you're saying and ask Dee Dee something, because
What?
I've seen her. I mean, you have such a tremendous range in your singing, and also you're bilingual, maybe trilingual. I don't even know how many languages you speak, but I know you speak French.
I
And you
can sing in
French.
more languages than I can speak.
You know, but one thing I notice about your singing is you're able to affect many different characters. So I was thinking about when Chick said that we know what feeling we want to create. So I just want to ask you, do you try to create a different feeling when you're in another language, or is the feeling the same but just the language is different?
Oh, I try and create a different feeling with every song that I do. And when I sing, I'm of course most comfortable when I sing in French because I spent so many years there, and that really is my second language. So I'm fairly comfortable when I sing in French. But I have to say, I've been doing some French songs recently with my trio, and it was very interesting when we would switch from the songs in English to the songs in French. I would take on this kind of French attitude, which is kind of hard to say, I mean, for people to understand if you haven't lived in France. But I mean, and the way that you pronounce the words, and so it brings up other kinds of emotions, because you have to treat the language so much more different than you would if you were speaking in English. So I would say, when you sing in another language, when I sing in French, or when I sing in Spanish, or when I sing in Italian, what I have noticed that I do most is I take on the ambiance of people that I have seen sing in those languages. If that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then I try and paint a picture for the listening audience who may not know the language, and so they're going to only be reacting from a visceral point or an emotional point. I just try and create a kind of scenario, or I try and do gestures with words that suggest what the word is that I'm saying, so that these people in the end, when the song is finished, even if they don't know it, they've had an emotional reaction to it because of the
Mhm.
way that I presented it. So that's what I do. But for me, I was thinking, and I was talking with this about the young musicians that I'm working with in my trio. I think of it as, you know, for me, I'm a musician. You know, I use words, you know, but I also have to know the music. I have to know the melody. I have to have an understanding of all the chord changes and stuff so that I can waltz around in that world. But I was saying to these young people, I said, you know what? When we're performing this music, you don't know what I'm saying. So I want you to just watch me, watch my body. My body's going to tell the story.
Mhm.
So that you know, you'll be able to apply, you know, the kinds of hits that you need to at a certain moment just because of that. Don't
Mhm.
worry about the fact that you can't understand what I'm saying. That's not important. When you go
Mhm.
to when you go to the opera, you hear an opera in Italian, you don't know what they're saying,
Mhm.
you know? Or
That's
you
why I
hear a
don't go
French
to
opera,
opera.
you don't know what they're saying. Or you hear a German opera, you don't know what they're saying.
I love you. Why
And
did you
so
break my heart?
but
Where
it's
did he go?
exact. Do you know what I'm saying? So what do we react to? The emotion that is being projected by the people that are spewing out these words in
Right.
the situations that they're in. So yeah,
I've never
I
got
think.
comfortable with people watching while I'm playing.
What
Really?
did you say, chick? You're
No,
not comfortable?
I've never thought about body language or anything. And when I see myself on a video, you know, I go, oh, yeah, you know, maybe I ought to do something with that, you know.
Well,
No,
wait. So you talk about that, and that brings me to your
No,
Spanish hearts.
man.
Oh,
You
well,
remember what I told you after I saw you at North Sea? I was so freaked out. I just loved it so much. Do you remember what I said, chick? Do you remember what I said? No, you don't remember what I
Don't
said.
put him on the
Sorry.
spot.
That's okay. I'll just tell you again. No, I was so moved by the band and by the performance, and also by the way that you had everybody set up on the stage. So it was this enormous cluster, but it was visually so sumptuous.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow.
And I just remember I was so swept away by the visual aspect because the music was already insane for me. And then to see the way that you had clustered everybody together, and it was this like, have you seen this, Winton? Have you seen him do it?
Oh
I,
yeah, I've seen him.
Oh my
I've
God, the
got,
Spanish Hearts.
Got the great Mikey Rodriguez. Yeah.
I've got,
Ooh,
I've thank you, Didi. You know, I've got the same kind of love for pulling a group together that Winton does.
Yeah.
Winton, I
mm,
know that when I first came and worked with Winton,
uh-huh.
with the band, the thing one of the things that struck me was the way Winton had his musicians or kind of organized into a group that really it was a group, but everybody was an individual, and and
Yes,
and encouraged everybody to really be themselves and somehow pull it together with the repertoire
yes.
and so forth, you know. And but I love that, Dee Dee. Thank you for that compliment. That means as much to me as what Tommy Flanagan said.
But it's but here's the thing, because here's something that I have always felt, guys, if you will allow me. Something that I have always felt has been kind of detrimental to our music is the visual component. And there are not enough musicians out there playing that add a visual component to the performance when we're doing concerts or even in a club setting, that it draws the audience in. And
Well, give me some advice.
oh no,
What do I do with this hair? What do I wear?
I'm
No,
not
She-
talking
I'm
about
half
that,
kidding.
chick. You are
No,
so silly. You're
she's
so
talking about
silly.
she's
I'm
talking
talking about
sometimes
tell him,
sometimes
Winton.
yes, so she talks sometimes people on the bandstand, if they're not playing, they look like they want to be somewhere else. Or that it's a loss of integrity to really listen with a certain
Amen.
intensity. and give yourself over to the music.
Yes.
As if you know, all we got going for us is music. If we don't have like light shows, if we don't have different degrees of nudity we can get into.
Well, you got
We better-
Stu, though. You got Stu.
We gotta be playing. You know, we can't have half our group that's not soloing acting like they rather be at home.
Thank you.
And it's such a blessing to play. And if
Yeah.
you listen to musicians, they're so great. If you really listen to what somebody else is playing and follow them on a gig, you've had such a better time listening to the other musicians play.
That's right.
You know, it's so much more fun than just sitting up there waiting for yourself to play.
That's right.
Yes.
You know, you go home with a hollow feeling when you've done that.
Yeah.
But when you listen to other people, it's so, because people are coming up with so many unbelievable things.
Right.
That's right.
And
Right.
you know, what Chick is saying, yeah, I mean, I've been blessed. My musicians, I love them with such an intensity because of the enjoyment I've had playing with them.
Yes,
And
sir.
it's not like a kind of, you know, music is such a spiritual thing. But what you were saying, and everything we've said tonight, you know, Chick, what you were saying about the musicians and your relationship with Horace, and now you can remember when Herbie and them came to the gig and sat down, and everything is so personal. And DD talking about the musicians and how it was like a family. But if you think about it, it's really still like that. I mean, we just got to figure out how, I think this space that we have has allowed us the opportunity to really think about what we have. Because I know when I got with Chick and he came with the band, he went on the road with them without me, and they loved him. They were calling me every night talking about all of what he played and what he was teaching people about playing in the rhythm and what they learned from checking him out. And I know with you, when Ali was with you, or you playing with Irvin Mayfield and all the musicians you play with, they love you and they talk about you in a very familiar way. How they gonna, what you're gonna do for them, and all the stuff you did for New Orleans and you did to keep everything going down there. So I think it's still there. We just got to figure out how to let more people know that's actually how we are.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Yeah.
I am in agreement. I'm in agreement.
Nice.
You know, Chick writes me some of the most beautiful notes, and I want to say it while I have him here, and Gail too. If something happens, you know, and it doesn't have to be something major like the death of my father. It can just be he heard a record or he did this or he did. In the midst of all that he has to do, in the midst of all of what Gail is doing, she will write me a note. And she uses a lot of icons in her notes. So you're always happy when you read them. You know? But it's so thoughtful. And this is the thing that
Yes.
that I was told a long time ago by Pearl Bailey. When she was with Louis Bellson, we played a jazz festival together. And she came backstage. I was on the same bill, a kind of cool jazz festival. And she brought me a gift. And she said, I brought you this gift because I wanted you to know that this is how we used to treat each other. And then I was maybe 25 or 26. So I don't buy people gifts, but I still think about it.
That's beautiful, man. That's really beautiful. Yeah, it's nice hanging with you, too. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're going to open it up for some questions. And then maybe some people just be, 10 or 15 minutes of some questions. I don't know. Adam is going to tell me what's happening.
Okay, this is good.
That sounds
What you
about
saying,
right.
Adam?
Yeah, 10 or 15 minutes is I think right on schedule. So we've got a number of people with their hands raised. So those of you who do have a question to ask, we'll try and get to as many as we can. We might not have enough time for everybody, but we'll get going on it right now. So the first question coming in is from Robbie Wheeler. Robbie, go ahead.
Hi, Winton. It's Robbie Wheeler. I'm from Milwaukee. I recently met you at the last concert here in December after my son couldn't come with me. You actually signed his ticket saying, Andrew, do your homework, man. And I've had so many opportunities over the years to watch you perform, meet you at concerts. And I just wanted to say, first of all, that all of that time has been so appreciated to me. The first time was in 1998. I was a grad student at the time. And over the years, you've given my boys countless memories as we look at these pictures with you guys. And so I just appreciate that time, and just want you to know that I've talked to them about just how humble you are and your character over the years. And I think that you've shown your father through that in our countless meetings. So I just want to tell you how much I appreciate that time that you've taken for my boys and myself after all of this. And I think everybody would agree that you are a representative of your father in how you handle yourself, both on stage and off stage. My question for you is you've talked so much about all of these things that you've done over the years, these great memories. And I'm kind of wondering how you feel you're currently growing as a musician. You know, it's easy to look from the outside and say, you're Wynton Marsalis, man. You know what there is to know about the industry, about playing jazz, but any educated person also knows that the more you know, the less you know. And I'm kind of wondering, what do you feel is sort of the next step for you? Are there things that you're hoping to embark on to help you grow as a musician?
Sure. Well, first, thank you for your comments, but it's just to become better. Like if you think Dee Dee, I was saying, I was listening to her and I was checking out just the type of way she inhabits songs. Okay, and I'm trying to. I was thinking, if I could play my horn and inhabit these songs like that, and play with that type of in 1 minute it's very effusive, and in the next second it's very intimate. Or just with Chick being on the phone. Chick and I had a conversation maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago about writing classical pieces and working together on a piece. And when I see him, he's talking about coming to New York in 1959. And he's still practicing and playing and thinking about music and writing and excited about stuff. I saw Chick, and this is what I think about this. So you asked me the question about how do I want to grow as a musician. We played a gig in France, and we played after Chick played. Now that gig started at 10 o'clock. So he's already on European time, so which is 5, 6 hours after American time. So it's basically 2 or 3 in the morning where he's coming from. He has an hour ride on a bus back to his hotel. He stayed around after his gig and heard our band. I had some of my young students from Juilliard who really could play. He stayed around after the gig and then commented on the songs and said, man, that 1 second movement where y'all played something about belief. He remembered the name of the song. Now this was just last summer. And I just looked at him and said, damn, I hope I can maintain that type of integrity about music. So he played a gig already. And then it's like 1 or 2 in the morning in France. And I just, I'm humbled by the fact that he'll get on the phone with us tonight and have that type of enthusiasm. And it's the same way that he approaches it. And it's the same way Dee Dee approaches songs and dealing with the music, that type of youthfulness and liveliness. So that's what I'm working on. And I'll throw it over to Chick because I'm talking about him, but tell him how true that story is, Chick.
Yeah, that was sweet. But do you remember wasn't that the night I sat in with the group?
That's right. You sat in at the end.
I played with that amazing young piano player, man. He showed me
Isaiah.
Isaiah. He showed me the changes as we were doing it.
Oh, how fabulous!
That's right.
Yeah.
But he waited to the end of the gig and came out and played. I forgot that you actually were there at the end.
Yeah,
but that makes sense. It has to be at the end, Wynton.
Yeah, that was.
He couldn't come in because it would disrupt.
Yeah, we'd have to get off the stage.
No, I didn't just walk on. I mean, I was invited.
No,
but I want you to.
Of course.
But she didn't walk on uninvited. She walked on after she was told, "Don't walk on."
Well, then there's that, But then that was when I was very young, so I would never do that now. And it's really important to the young man that had asked you the question. When I think for artists, for those of us who are really true to our music and our art, the thing that is most important for us is to keep pushing the envelope and to keep pushing ourselves to do something new, to keep challenging ourselves so that we are always renewing the energy and renewing the love and renewing all of the wonderfulness that goes into being an artist. I feel that if the day that I stop trying to be creative is the day that I can check out. Mm-hmm. I want to push like so many musicians have pushed. Look at oh Lord, I just lost the name. But there's so many musicians. Look at Ray Brown, who played up until he went to play a game of golf, and he had a knee surgery, and we had all said, Ray, don't go golf. Don't go out on the road.
Roy Haynes is 95.
Look at Roy Haynes. And still out there. And don't tell him not to go.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? And Roy has dementia.
Right.
And I've been to a couple of his shows where there have been young people in the audience who don't know that he has dementia. And so he'll repeat himself, say the same thing after each song. And then there are these young people, why does he keep repeating, you know? But the beauty is that
happens
as
when
soon as he
plays the
sits
drum.
down behind that drum, he
That's right.
But you
doesn't
know,
forget anything.
and you know, another thing is to realize, like for me, I love my young people. Like I love Isaiah Thompson.
Mhm.
All of that. I mean, he can play. He's serious. And look, when I see him, I hug him, and I tell him, "Look, man, people comfortable when you mean or you negative toward them. But I want to hug you because I want you to know the depth of the love." So when Chick came out on the stage, the type of
Mhm.
graciousness that he had and the love that he showed. Now we're talking 8 months later, and he remembers that. He's saying, "Yeah,
nice.
beautiful young piano player that was up there, and the way he played." And that's how we keep the feeling of the music going. And
Yes.
that's what my man with his sons. Yeah, when I see people come with their sons or their father, you know,
Yes.
their mothers, I always say, "Hey, that's your mama. You know, she's out here. It's 11 o'clock at night." And I always try to, because that's a special thing, you know.
It
And
is.
my mother died of dementia. So I just think of people's parents taking them to stuff and the type of love they have for their kids and the blessing we have to be able to interface with people and their children and to give them some love and a good feeling. They go home feeling right, like, yeah, we didn't like the music, but the guy was nice. So, you know, that's important.
Exactly. Yes. Then there's that.
Oh, we
yes.
love the music. We love the music.
I'm just playing, man. I'm messing with you. But, you know, I know you. I love you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Wynn.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, thanks, Robbie. All right, next question is from Sarah Frischer.
Hi.
Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, Winston. Hi.
Hey, now.
Hello, Dee Dee. I've been spending a lot of time with Chick. Winton, you
Oh,
nurtured
I
me.
recognize you. You've been coming on the live stream.
I can't miss one evening.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure. I have a question in as much as I was so happy to be in everybody's good company. The word I had written down was integrity, which every one of you have, Dee Dee, Chick, and Winton. And the fact that the way you nurture each other is that each musician should do his best so that the whole is
Yes.
the best that it could be.
Yes.
In my life, I've had that pinned up on my walls. I've just escaped the regular double screen to go back to painting, which I always did. And with Chick's inspiration, I've actually been painting because he says, "Do it."
Hey,
That's
talk
wonderful.
about your, thank you. Talk about your live stream, Chick.
I did it as you know, I didn't know much about this fella here, you know, and then someone, because I wasn't liking the sound on my old iPhone. So someone said, "You ought to get a new iPhone." I'm not trying to promote iPhones, by the way, but I got a new one and the sound was so good. I thought, gee, I'd like to try and, you know, someone was talking about Facebook. I never got on Facebook ever. Not my thing. But then someone showed me how to do it. I thought that'd be an interesting experiment. So I just put the phone up like that. And she showed me how to go on live. And I just practiced. I said, well, if anyone's there, I'm just going to practice. And, you know, and I'd stop, try a tune. And, you know, and I was on for an hour. And then then when I learned how to look at it, I saw a lot of people were tuning in. So,
1,500.
but they were saying how nice it felt during this time to have some music, you know. So I just kept doing it. So today I finished day 25, and I'm having a ball because, you know, when we were young, if money is your basic motivation, you don't get too far. You know what I mean? We didn't start out trying to make money. We started out because it was fun and it was engaging and it was something you really wanted to do. And you know, and then getting older, it turns out that you see that other people gain something positive by it. When you get old enough to appreciate that, which is, I don't know, it took me a while to appreciate that. First, it was all about me. And then I started to see that other people enjoy it. It makes you want to do it more and having fun. So that's why I've been practicing on Facebook for 25 days.
That's very cool, Chick.
That's
Yeah, you're
tremendous.
right.
Very cool.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. All right, let's take another question. We've got one from Jeffrey Ocampo. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Hi, how are you guys doing? I'm from Fort Lauderdale. My question to you guys is, how do you guys, throughout the years that you guys have been playing professionally, how do you guys balance out your musical career with your life, as in like starting a family or just having a social life in general?
Oh,
You just do it. You do it. You just do it. You don't. It's not something that I think that you can spend time thinking about. You're concerned about making money when you start out, and so you're just trying to get gigs. You know that when you do those gigs, you gotta. Well, in my case, I had to get a babysitter. I didn't have money. I would take my first daughter with me to the gigs. I would ask the coat check lady, because back then we had coat checks. I would ask her if she would watch the baby while I would sing, and I would give her my bassinet, and she would keep it in the coat check room, and I'd sing my songs, and then I'd run and get my baby, and then I'd go back into the kitchen. I mean, I think, and I say that to say that I think when you want to do something bad enough, you figure out how to make it happen. But you have to want to do it. So I knew that I wanted to be a singer. I knew that I also wanted to be a mother. I figured it out. I made it work for me. Now, what I figured out may not work for another person, another woman, another man that, wants to have children and have a career. But I think that it's something that can apply to anything in life that you want to do. When you decide that you want to do that thing, you will work everything out. You will work everything out. And then you've got to remember that you are not alone, and that there are people around you that love you and that will help you if they see that you are serious about that thing that you want to do.
Talk about it.
So whatever it is that you want to do in life, you can do it. Once you decide up here in your head that this is the thing that you want to do, you can do it. Then you just set about doing it, and it just works itself out. Now, that's not to say that there may be some issues that result from it. I mean, like my children suffered a little bit, but here they are now. All my kids are adults, and they've landed on their 2 feet. So it's all about your choices, I think, and doing things that you really, truly believe in. If you're passionate, there has to be some passion in it. If you're passionate about the thing that you want to do, then I think that you can figure out a way to balance your personal life and your professional life. But I will say this, it ain't easy.
Right.
It ain't easy. But you can do it.
I got one comment to add. All that Dee says is true for me too. But I got a very simple comment to add, that if you lose your dream, you lose your future and you lose your life. All you've got is your dream. So if you compromise with your dream, you ain't got much left.
There we go. There we go.
You just got to be able to envision other people as a part of it if you have a family.
Yeah.
And it's nothing you do is not going to be sacrificed. Like it doesn't matter what. That sacrifice is always a part of it, for them and for you.
I mean, all you can just look at your our parents. Look at or other adults. When you were growing up, and how those people were able to manage their lives. So it's no different. Perhaps it might be a little bit more complicated today because we are just pulled in so many different ways. But as Chick said, you gotta be. If you don't dream, if you don't have a dream, what is the life? You've got to. I always say to kids, dream and dream big. The bigger your dreams, the better it's gonna be when you realize.
Hey, you know what? Don't you think also? Don't you think?
And then when you realize those dreams, dream some more.
Don't you think also that the actual doing of it is the pay? It's not.
Yes.
Right.
It's not the end of the gig or the applause or the money. it's like the doing of it. You know, when I'm writing music, and I've got my pencil, and I've got my score paper, and I've got my piano, and I'm touching these things, and I'm moving this pencil around, and I'm pressing the keys. That's the shit.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's okay. We've heard that word.
yeah.
We got to put a beat on it and make it into a song.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's the doing of it, and you gotta have. If it ain't fun, it ain't worth doing.
Right, because with any dream or something you have, you don't know that you're gonna attain that. And then when you have a collective dream, you also don't know about that. Like you could achieve something personally, but you might have a dream for you and a lot of other people. You might have a dream for your neighborhood or your country or your family or the world. And it's just like Martin Luther King said, he had a dream. We so far away from realizing that, but what should he have not had the dream? I mean, somebody like me is a result of part of his dream. And many of us, you know, some of us suffered because of it. Some of us had great advantages. Some of us, you know, and there are many dreams going on earth all the time. And, you know, we got to go down that road. You know, you got to go, just like that old song, you got to walk that lonesome valley.
Yeah.
You get other people that dream with you. They're not always in your family.
That's right.
You know, your
How do you
family
feel about
comes
all of that,
in
Jeffrey?
a lot of forms.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the reason I asked is just that's my biggest concern. I'm only 16, but like I said, once I go into this professional journey, or hopefully one day, that's probably one of my biggest concerns. Just because I see you, Mr. Marsalis, usually when I see you, you're usually always on the road. So I always wonder, how do you maintain a family while you're always on the road?
Don't worry about it. You can't.
Well, you're 16, yeah. So
Yes.
you should not even be.
No, plenty of time. I know.
Don't use me as an example. I'm gonna give you some good advice. Do not use me as an example. But you know, when I was young, I always had my older kids always would be on the road with me, man. And you know, now they're 32 and 30, and I mean they're grown. And it's like what Dee said. You gotta bring people with you. Like when I grew up, my father was at home. He always wanted to be out on the road. He sacrificed a lot for us. He just was there, and it was a lot of us. And I always make the point: our family life was not like Ozzie and Harriet. It had all the kind of challenges and dysfunctions that people at that time and era had. And with my family life and everything, I have all the challenges and dysfunctions that people in my type of situation have. But that is what the definition of life is. There's no foolproof plan. The only thing I can tell you is try to avoid doing things that you know are stupid. When you know something is stupid, don't do it. Don't tell yourself, this is stupid, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Don't do it.
When you know it's stupid, don't do it, because then you're going to tell yourself, man, I knew this was stupid. I did it. Because the most harm is going to come to things you do yourself. That's the one piece of advice I'm going to give you.
Amen.
Don't do things you know are stupid. Settle to things that you think are stupid, not that you know. And a family is the most beautiful thing you can. I'm always saying, family is the most beautiful thing you can have. You know, it's the most beautiful thing you can have.
Have you had enough advice now?
Yeah. Of course, yes, sir.
Thank you.
It's never enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chick.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
That's right. Thank you, man. Practice that horn, too.
All right, guys, we've got time for just one more. Want to remind everybody quickly, we've got a pretty good lineup that's continuing of question and answer sessions with Wynton, master classes, conversations with members of the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. That's going to continue to go on in the coming days and weeks. Our last question will be coming from a friend of Jazz at Lincoln Center's. She's a great musician and vocalist. Alexis Morast, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello.
Girl, you should be in bed. What time is it? It's past your bedtime.
Alexis!
Hi.
Alexis. I love you, Alexis.
I love you too.
This girl should be sleeping.
Oh, people, you need to check Alexis out. Oh, my Lord. What a blessed child. Okay.
Thank you.
She is. She's a blessing. Where's your mom and daddy? Tell them, do they know you up?
Yeah. Yes. My dad is listening in with me, and my mom is she's around the house doing something.
Give my love.
I most definitely will. I just want to thank you guys for doing this. This is such a wonderful thing that you're doing for everybody, especially with everyone going through, you know, the hard times that we're in right now. This is just a way to brighten everybody's spirit. But I had some questions for Miss Bridgewater about repertoire building first, and then building a brand. With me being a young musician and already having some experience under my belt, but with still a whole lot left to learn, I find it challenging sometimes just to stay caught up with all of, you know, the music. There's so much to listen to and so many options to choose from. But I just wanted to know how you continuously build your repertoire, and then when it comes to making sure that, you know, you have something that makes you who you are. You know, the first time I met you, I was taken back. You were such a beautiful woman. You came in with the funky glasses and the boots and the hat, and I was taken back, but that made you who you are. And I think I'm in all of this, trying to build my musicianship, but also find my voice in everything else that's going on.
Well, okay, Alexis, in terms of building your musicianship and building your repertoire, it's very simple. You just have to do material that speaks to you, that speaks to your spirit, because that is the material that you are going to be able to really breathe life into. So I just try and find songs that tell stories, that touch me, that move me, and that I feel will move other people. Because if I'm moved and I believe in something, then it's going to be much easier for me to convince people who have come to share an evening with me that thing is real. You know, so
Right.
a lyric is really important. I don't know how that is for you. Do you choose songs because of the story that the songs are telling?
I think it would be 50-50. I choose it because it has a significant meaning to me when it comes to lyrics. But then if the music is great, I also choose because of that. I'm moved by a lot of things when it comes to music. I am a vocalist, but because I've grown up with my dad, who's a piano player and an organist, and I've been around
And can play.
drummers.
You
Right.
can play too.
I listen
Skip
for
over. You can play.
Yes. I
So,
listen for
so
authentic.
Alexis, when I was starting out, I was like that too. So I would pick songs because I dug the melody. Maybe the story was trite, but because I was just trying to build my chops, you know, and because for me, when I was growing up, I was trying to do the scatting. Scatting isn't as important as it used to be to be a jazz singer. But it's okay to pick a tune because you like the melody,
Right.
you know, and not so much because of the story. So, but as long as the song has some kind of meaning to you, then that's going to come across when you do that song. Okay. And
Okay.
then in terms of your brand, baby, you young, please. You are young. So your brand, your look, all of that is going to be in constant flux until you get to a point where you can settle and be really comfortable about the who that you have created and the look that you have created, and then it will just be second nature to you. So you're young, so you're learning. So what I would say to you is just be the you that you are today.
Thank you.
Be the you that you are today, because tomorrow you're going to wake up and you might feel another kind of way.
Right.
So then what people are going to perceive is all these different facets of you. And then eventually it's going to all come together and it's going to create your brand, your image, you know, but just keep being the you that you are and doing the things that you like and dressing how you like and how you feel comfortable. Just keep doing that, honey. You're too young for it to be completely solidified. I'm 70 the end of May. And I've been doing this for 50 years. I've been doing this. So the Dee Dee Bridgewater that I am today, that I am in this particular moment with all of you tonight, is the culmination of my 70 years on this earth and my 50 years as an entertainer, and making mistakes and picking myself up and doing it again, you know, and you're talking about bad reviews, bad critiques. People used to critique me because they would put me down because I moved on the stage. How dare a singer move? They put me down because I was changing up my repertoire. Who did I think I was? They would say, a musician?
Right.
Because a singer is supposed to, for some reason, as a singer, we're supposed to stay in one lane. I refused. So now, as a result of that, and for me, weathering all of the bad criticism, not listening to it, just keeping on my path, on my truth, I have arrived at a place today where all of those years and all those experiences have created this individual that is sitting here with you tonight. And the other thing that I would say is, Alexis, continue to walk without fear. And if you
Okay,
have
thank
fear,
you.
you have got to push through that fear.
Thank
You've
you.
got to dive in that water. It may be cold and it may be deep. And you may struggle, but you will come out in the end. So you've just got to do those things that you feel. Operate on those feelings when you feel them.
Mm-hmm.
Dress how you want to dress that makes you feel comfortable. Be you. There's only one you. There's nobody else like you in the whole wide world. And that's it. Period.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. It's
Because
lovely to
listen
see
to me,
you again.
baby. Here, listen to me. You have a sense of the music, and you have a sense of stage, and you have a sense of yourself that is uncanny for someone as young as you are. So you are already on.
That's true.
It
You
isn't
ain't
it?
lying. Oh, you ain't lying about that.
So
She-
you are
she-
already on the right path.
Thank
So
you.
just keep going there, baby, and don't be afraid.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Yes.
And the last thing is, don't be afraid to fall.
Mhm.
You can pick yourself back up.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much.
You're so fabulous.
Thank you. So are you. Thank you, Mr. Marsalis. And I've never had the opportunity of meeting you, Mr. Correa, but I have seen you play live once at BB King's with Layla Hathaway. And I must say, you are incredible, sir. Incredible.
Thank you so much.
And my dad loves you. My dad is like a cheerleader.
Can play.
I look forward to hearing you. Nice.
Absolutely.
Oh, chick, you
Nice
love
to
her.
meet
You love
You
her.
go. Yeah, she can sing, chick.
Yeah.
Hey, don't
Really,
forget about
she can
that.
sing. She
Don't
can't
forget
sing, she
about
can
that intellectual
sing.
development. Don't
All
forget
right.
about those books, that intellectual development.
Listen, I still got to get with you so we can study.
Well, let's go. 'Cause, you know,
Listen, all we got is time now. We locked in the house.
But I can't come by the house now. We quarantine, but I'm coming over there and get my Sunday dinner.
We're ready. We're ready. We're ready.
We're gonna see about the black eyed peas and the red beans and all of that.
Ooh,
Yes,
stop now.
we're ready. We are ready.
Y'all get ready. We're gonna see. We're
All
gonna
right.
see about
Thank you guys so much.
All right.
I really appreciate all the
Thank-
advice.
Oh,
Thank
you are
you.
so welcome, Alexis.
Thank
Yes,
you.
That's beautiful.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Alexis.
Yeah, you're gonna love her, chick.
Oh, really, chick? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Amazing.
All right, guys. I think that's about all the time we have for tonight. Want to say thanks again to everybody for joining us. To our supporters and donors, we can't thank you enough. I'd also like to mention that Jazz at Lincoln Center's Gala, a worldwide concert for our culture, is premiering this Wednesday, April 15th at 7:30 p.m. We'll be having guest performances from some of the world's greatest musicians representing 11 different countries around the globe, in addition to a few performances from the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. You can go to jazz.org/gala2020 for all the info. I'll put that in the chat right now as well. Jazz.org/gala2020. And we hope you'll tune in on Wednesday. So thanks again to Chick Corea, Dee Dee Bridgewater, Wynton Marsalis, and all of you for joining us. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Hey,
All
Whitney,
right.
thanks for
You.
inviting
Yeah,
me.
man. I'm gonna write you. Thank you. Dee, thank y'all.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Wynton. Thank you so much. Thank
Much
you,
love.
chick.
Love and
Much
respect.
love.
All right
right.
now. Look out, Adam. We got work to do tonight.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks, guys. It was a
Bye.
pleasure.
Okay. Good night, everyone, and stay safe.
Night.